You're listening to a fine vintage episode of One More Sip of the Garden Mixer, our after-hours show that drops every other week between bigger sips. Interested in newer releases? You can find out how to become a paid subscriber on Substack and get exclusive access for a whole year when you support the show. Gardening shouldn't be boring. More at thegardenmixerpodcast.substack.com. Now back to Vintage One More Sip.
Hot flashes in the garden. It's not what you think. It turns out everybody has them. They sound a little bit more scientific when we call them microclimates, which is what they actually are. I'm Leslie Harris. She's Marianne Wilburn, and we're going to learn more about how to deal with those hot flashes in the garden on One More Sip of the Garden Mixer. If you're listening to this, we are so excited that you are listening to this because you are one of our happy few, as they say, and I think it was Henry V.
Our happy few.
Our happy few. And we're just so excited to have you here. We really love doing this podcast. It takes a minute to get it to get it together, and we'd rather be golfing. No, we'd rather be gardening.
Leslie, gardening. Yes. And
although, did I tell you I had a birdie? Okay, never mind.
No, you didn't, and you don't need to.
No, that's even worse than grandchildren. So let's go back to our happy few. And we are
a few more than we thought, too.
Yes.
So this is really exciting, sort of building a little community here of the One More Sip community. Very cool.
We're not really thirsty. We're just going to have one more sip.
Yeah.
So today's topic is these microclimates, and we're talking about slopes. We're talking about raised beds. We're talking about south-facing walls, north-facing walls, wind breaks, directional exposure, all these things that make it so your garden is not just one boring place. It has a lot of interesting pockets. Right, Marianne?
Right. I live in one big interesting pocket, really, in a stream valley, which is also referred to by my friends as the holler. And that deep, dark cave you live in. I've heard that. But
great.
You know who wants to be here in August? They all do. Because it's cool.
Because it's so cool.
Yes. So microclimates go both ways, not just hot and dry and a little bit warmer, but also cooler in your own garden. And if you are a new gardener and you are going to the USDA site to find out what's my zone, and it says, well, you're in zone 7A, and you say, great, I'm going to plant for 7A, and then you lose everything in a freak freeze or not so freak freeze, you may actually be in 6B like I am. Because technically up at the top of the hill, 2 miles up a road, it's 7. It's a full 7 there. And when you come down this way, I've got a little bit of 7 by my front door where an Edgeworthia chrysantha can live. But if I take that Edgeworthia chrysantha or its babies and I put them down by the barn, which is the majority of my garden, it is toast. There is no Edgeworthia chrysantha. It is fully 6B there. So it's good to know the garden that you inhabit and what kind of hot flashes you're going to have. They can be good.
They could be cold flashes. They could be hot flashes, but you're good. You're going to enjoy your garden more if you understand what's going on. Here, I've been a gardener for so many years, a professional gardener, professional horticulturist, certified. And I moved into this place 18 months ago and I thought, okay, we got a shady garden here. Well, you idiot, you moved in September 5th. And that is so far away from the equinox. And so the back of my house, which is the north, between a cement wall, a little tiny garden that I then covered up with marble, I am officially 7B, but I bet you parts of that little garden are 8. It's just so hot. And it's also difficult because it is one of those places that only gets full sun in those, 6 or 8 weeks right by June 21st, the equinox. And for the rest of the time, it is shady. So they're tricky things. There are plants that can do both, and you grow a lot of them because tropicals can do both, right?
Yeah, tropicals can do both. You just have to be really careful. Some of them that are understory plants, they are going to get burned if they're going into that hot. It is in the middle of the day. But a lot of them can handle it. They can fluctuate. Things like Alocasia macrorrhiza, which is just sort of your bog standard Alocasia, large root Alocasia, but it's also large leaf Alocasia. And that prefers usually to be in a bit of shade, but it can handle some sun and it's strong enough. I had it next to another type of elephant ear, Ramusia, which could not handle that same exact location. Right next to it, it got absolutely burned. And from that experience, even though for the most part it was in shade all day, I realized that I just need to tuck that Ramusia into an area where it really doesn't get any kind of sun, just a little bit of dapple.
Ramusia. Spell, please. I am not familiar.
Remusatia. And I don't know that I'm pronouncing it properly, but it's a very cool elephant ear that has long sort of I want to say rhizomes, but I think it's more stolons that are coming off of the plant, sort of like a monstera. So
Oh,
in the
cool.
ground. So it's an interesting plant. I was just growing it, for something different, but it could not handle the same thing that another tropical next to it, large-leafed elephant ear could, which is why you should always know the the actual botanical name of what you're growing because they're both elephant ears, but they're
Yeah,
very
but some
different.
of them are doing
So,
different things.
yeah.
And it's interesting that you could take those elephant ears that can take the sun and plant something that can't take the sun and right under. We talked about this with Linda Vada the other day because she loves to topiary things and, limb up trees and that sort of thing. And you can create your own shade pockets if you need them by having interesting plants in your garden. I just invested in this pinky winky hydrangea, which will grow to, I don't know, probably 12 feet tall. And if I prune it up right, then yes, it's going to catch the full sun. And underneath of it, my hostas that I planted so lovingly, thinking I was in a shade garden back there in the bowling alley, which got crispy fried last summer, are going to eventually, and they survived, of course, they just didn't look very happy, are going to be very happy eventually because I'm planting things that will provide parasols for these things that are perfectly happy in some sun, but not all sun. There are some great flowering perennials that will do this for you that won't not flower in shade and will absolutely take the full sun. And there are quite a few of them on that list, by the way, listeners, because I'm not doing the video edition of this.
Oh, it's so freeing. I'm naked right now, actually.
No, you're wearing a goddess dress.
I am. I'm very sad actually. Listeners can't see this goddess dress.
Maybe we'll have to just put a short of this. Show the sleeve. It's
So,
crazy. She got
oh
it
no,
caught up
I'll
in the
stand
microphone a
up. I
minute
will
ago.
stand up for this short. It's a cross between Eowyn in Lord of the Rings and Mrs. Roper in Three's Company.
Meanwhile, I'm wearing what I wore for golf this morning. Um, so sexy. What were we oh, the list of plants, perennials, and of course
Oh,
there are
right,
tons
the
of shrubs.
plants, the plants.
The plant.
That's right.
Tons of shrubs and annuals too, but here's a quick list of that can go in that place, and I call it, what do I call it? The hot girl summer. No, the hot garden summer. The hot where
The hot
it's like
place.
the hot place, which is my bowling alley, which is shade, 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 shade until it's not because the sun is way up high. And then you're like, burn, 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 hot girl summer. And then you're back to shade, say in August or, mid August, September.
So is it I didn't actually ask you this, but is it hot sun all day during that period of time, or is it just part of the
No,
day?
just part of the day. But
Okay. How
an
many hours?
increasingly, well, so right at, like on June 21st, we're
Mhm.
talking 6 hours.
Oh, that's significant.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
we're
that's
on
definitely
August 21st, on
tricky.
September 5th, when I moved in, we're talking 1 hour.
Right.
It's a narrow little place and the sun comes up and yeah, and maybe you have something like that in your garden. I did garden, one of my first gardens when I was in Connecticut, and I had this little bed that I built, and I'm like, "Wait a minute, how does this work? You're only in the sun, like, in June, and then
Mhm.
you're not." But there are some, flowering perennials that'll do well for you, and here's a quick list. Phlox paniculata, which is it flowers in sun, it flowers in shade. Rudbeckia echinacea, because they happen to flower right about at the equinox, so they'll do
Always
okay.
amazed at how little sun echinacea can take sometimes to get itself started. I was just looking at a seedling of Echinacea magnus underneath the Amsonia rictii, underneath the Chamaecyparis that's gonna push itself all the way up. And you're like,
Nice.
"How are you
That's a
doing that? You're
great
not getting
plant.
any sun," but every year.
Magnus or Maxima?
Is it I thought no, not Maxima is the Rudbeckia maxima, which is the yeah,
And you were talking
it's
about
echinacea.
echinacea.
I think it's Magnus. I think it is. It's just a very, very tall coneflower.
What popped into my head was the, Rudbeckia maxima, which is
Yeah.
an awesome plant. We'll have to talk about that sometime. Damn, I wish I
Damn, I
planted
wish I
that. That's
planted
coming up.
that. Yeah.
Echinacea baptisia, baby's rattle, great plant. Heuchera, acanthus, which is I'm a fan. I'm a fan. It can run around in your garden, and you might be sad because
No,
it has
I like
taproots.
acanthus.
Yeah,
I do, except I don't know. In mine, I have it getting hit by sun pretty hard after being shady,
and
and
does it pout?
it just it wilts. I mean, it's alive. It comes back. It blooms because they do need some
But
sun to
it's
bloom. But there's that transpiration period during the middle of the day where it doesn't really matter if the plant was sitting in water, although that would actually make it wilt too. It's going to wilt. It's losing all of that water out of the stomata. They're just going out of the leaves, and it's not able to
adjusts quickly enough.
do it on a cellular level, is it? It's not able to close the stomata. Is
Mm.
that what's going on? I can't
Yeah,
remember.
I think that's what's going on, and that could happen. It happened in my garden the other day. It was just a perfectly normal 75-degree spring day with full-on sun, but we had had tons of rain the night before, and I'm looking at these tiny little plants, and they're all looking very sad, as if they had no water, but no, it was just a sudden outbreak of sunshine, and they're like, "Ah, gotta transpire. I'm giving it all out here," and so they look very sad for the moment, and they if they've got water at their roots, they're gonna come back, right?
Yeah, it's really hard if you're dealing with a pest, an underground pest, like a vole or a mole or ants or something, and you're actively dealing with that and trying to figure out if the plant is okay now and it's middle of the day and it's transpiring. I was just doing this with kale. I lost half of my kale to ants this year. So every time they start to wilt in the middle of the day, I'm sitting there going, are those ants? Is that voles? What's going on? Because they look so terrible. But if they're back up and perky in the morning with that morning dew, you're good. It's just
Yeah,
it's just a question of where they are, and they can't take that sun. Well, they
as with
can
many
take it. That's
things,
the point. They can take it. They just,
they look like they
they
can't for the
can't. They
moment.
look like they can't. So I'll go with acanthus. I'm in agreement there. How about Aurelia cordata, Sun King?
But it bleaches out for me. I love the line, and if it has too much sun, it bleaches out a little
Yeah,
bit.
it does if it's too much sun, but it doesn't burn. It just sort of
Yeah,
bleaches a little,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
different, right?
Hardy geraniums do very well.
Mhm. Yeah.
Hemerocallis, which, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
full shade, full sun,
Oh,
very
yeah,
dry, very
everywhere.
wet,
Yeah.
everywhere. And
Mhm.
Japanese anemone, which responds well to that sort of treatment. And there are tons of shrubs and annuals, as I said. But anyway, you do have you're split for choice if you listen to Gardner's Question
Spoilt for choice.
on plants that you think you're like, "Oh, this garden is difficult." It's not that difficult. You just have to observe and adjust.
And I'd be working with a lot of flowering shrubs, I think, too. I'd be looking that way, or even not flowering shrub, just structural shrubs, some neat, cool junipers or some really cool Japanese white pines or, some interesting things like that, uh, that, that you can play with if you're really having a hard time and you don't want to keep exhausting the flowers. But microclimates are sort of a superpower in your garden. Once you've figured them out and you're then you get to harness them and play with them a little bit and you want more of them.
Raised bed is an easy way to get one because
Yep.
instead of just being attached to this earth, which is warming up in spring, it's like, "Oh, I have the sun on my sides, not just on my top," and they warm up much faster for veg if you're interested. You have that, right?
I do. All of my veg are in raised beds, and it just means that soil is a little bit warmer, a little bit earlier. In fact, I was listening to Doug Oster talk about this on his radio show that, we think it's all about the ambient air around us. Oh, look, it's warm enough to put the tomatoes in, but it does not matter if that soil is cold. They're just going to sulk. They could rot. They could
Yes.
actually get a disease, or more likely they get a fungus, that takes hold because they're too cold. So, wait on that. But if you've got a microclimate of raised beds, you're warming that soil just that much faster. or if you've got them up against a wall or something like that that's reflecting that light. Because I work with so many tropicals, I'm actively trying to build heat wherever I can. And, that might be near a body of water, it might be next to a wall, might be I don't have much south facing here that's not covered in the forest. But anywhere that I could just build that heat a little bit, I try and do.
Can I tell you about a brilliant man who was born a long, long time ago who did this?
Sure. You're gonna talk about the past? Are you kidding me? Leslie, I'm absolutely on the edge of my seat.
Well, you can settle back in because we're talking about wonderful history. I live in Charlottesville, Virginia, and Thomas Jefferson,
Oh,
who
right. Okay.
actually
Okay.
founded the University
You
of
hardly
Virginia,
even need
where
to look that up.
I attended. Yes. But so Monticello is one of the most visited presidential houses, and it's really cool because instead of just being this is where the dude lived, this is what the dude made, including a 1,000-foot vegetable bed hewn out of the side of
That
his
he hewed.
small mountain. He hewed. Hewn?
That
I
sounds
don't know
like
what the past
a
participle of to
Martha
hew.
Stewart he. That's like the way that she uses the pronouns of I just plowed the back 40 with
Okay, so we're talking about enslaved people. However,
no, I mean
however, they
just
were
period. Indentured, enslaved.
no, they were enslaved. So he did not do that, but he had this fine idea
Okay.
to hew this 1,000-foot vegetable bed out of the side of a southeast facing mountain, and then every rock that was encountered in the digging, not by him, placed below it. And so he literally called it his submural bed, and so that, a mural is a wall, that's the Latin, I think, and below. And so the vegetables are sitting up there all pretty. The rocks are down below it, sort of as a retaining wall holding up this bed. And then below that are things that he shouldn't have been able to grow very easily, such as figs and grapevines and all that sort of thing. So he was way ahead of
Ah.
his time in creating a microclimate. Clever guy, that Thomas Jefferson.
I don't think that I absorbed that information when I was last there. I mean, the vegetable garden is absolutely fabulous there, and it beats George Washington's Mount Vernon into a cocked hat.
Sorry,
That's it.
Dean Norton, if you're listening.
Who's that?
He's the head of horticulture.
But the flower gardens at George Washington's are better than Thomas Jefferson's poor.
I would
I
would
mean,
agree
they're
with that.
both like together they make one whole garden. I think.
And both of them there's a fabulous book, by what's her name? Mary Hume. I'll correct this in the notes, sorry. Or I'll have my girl correct it in the notes. Oh, that's Marianne.
We wish.
Founding Gardeners, because it's
Right.
Jefferson and Washington and Adams were all keen, keen gardeners. So, anyway.
Wait a minute. I do need to, little caveat though. I do need to say, down in the very bottom of Mount Vernon, where they have that sort of learning center and they have the threshing barn, they have vegetable beds down there that are sort of more along the lines of how settlers would have lived and worked on those land. And those are pretty cool. But I think the
Yeah,
formal gardens, Jefferson's
the
vegetable
walled
garden
garden.
is just so cool.
It's all-encompassing, it has that cool pavilion building sitting there
Yeah.
where you just wanna
The
bring a
plant
cocktail to.
markers are gorgeous. I think I remember
Oh,
taking a picture of
yeah.
that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
with a beautiful script. They probably hire somebody separate just to do the
they
the
totally do. I wanna hire somebody to do my labels.
do you
Yeah,
label or do you not?
yeah.
Hey, so what else about microclimates? Hot flashes in the garden, hey?
Well, I'm gonna take you to a garden which has got a lot of microclimates, and that's gonna be in September. We're going to Wildside Garden, which is the garden of Keith Wiley. And he was at the garden house down the road, and he really experimented with all of these different microclimates there. And then when he moved to his own garden at Wildside, he started creating them with the aid of a JCB, a big digger. And he has had a 4 acre piece of land that he reckons he's turned into a 6 acre piece of land because it goes up and it goes down and it's fabulous. And consequently, he's built the little climates, the south facing scree slope or the low stream valley or the canyon. he's built all of the things that he wanted to have in order to grow the plants from around the world that he used to just love. He'd go to South Africa and just be in awe of their bulbs. And so you're going to see microclimates on a major scale. It's a pretty cool garden, what he's created
I
there.
can't wait. I can't wait. Observation is the key with this though, right? If a plant is suffering, think about what's it going through that
Yeah.
it might not be fair, as in my grilled hostas that first summer.
Right. I've got a really good example of this. I have a friend who gave me a mayapple, but a Chinese mayapple, and I have lots and lots of palatum mayaples, our native mayaples. But this is a really cool one with red flowers. And it's been sitting in this same spot, not getting any bigger for probably 5 years now. And the reason for that is it's in a shady spot, except the sun hits it at peak sun hours for 3 hours a day. And it burns it a little bit. And it also, because it's south facing, it is the south facing spot. It's just there's trees in the way. Um, because it's in that spot, the soil warms a little earlier, and so it gets started too early, and then the frost always hits it down to the ground. So it's
Yeah.
not in a place where it can thrive, all because of that microclimate by my front door that my Edgeworthia really likes and needs. So I'm going to actually scoop that little puppy up probably this week and bring it down to the barn where it's a little bit colder, but it'll stop it from coming up too soon and it will be in the shade for the most part, not that burning sun. So that's just taken me looking at it, being miserable and not getting any bigger. And then the final catalyst was the man who gave it to me came and visited to see the garden about a week ago. And he said, is that the plantamum I gave you? I said, yes. No, like, right. That should be really huge. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah, I
you're
remember
very
you
wrong.
digging part of it this huge, from this huge thing. And like, yeah, I got to move that thing. So it's all about observation. And then, of course, it's also about not being lazy. Once you observe something, act upon it.
Do something about it. Even, your heartbreak with the wisteria, the 97 wisteria buds.
Oh, the 97 blooms.
If you could move that plant, and you can't because it's
Uh-uh.
in a, it's beautifully planted in a wonderful place where you're gonna have cocktails and that sort of thing. But if you have a plant like that that is constantly breaking your heart because the buds come along, it's south facing, it's in a warm spot in spring, and then all of a sudden that frost comes, you could move that plant like your mayapple to a colder spot, which sounds like it wouldn't work, but it would work because, okay, cold, cold, cold. I am not gonna force my bud, and therefore I am not going to be the heartbreak plant that that has the bud that's blasted by frost. And so
Exactly.
colder in that case might be better.
Yeah, like Magnolia soulangeana, the saucer magnolia. It's a perfect example of that. I see some on my when I go down to DC along this road, along this side of a building, south facing. They've been almost espaliered there, and every year they're blackened because they're
Uh,
on this wall saying, "Okay, let's go," and
we're
then the freeze
going.
comes, and nobody's going to argue with that air. So,
Yeah.
yeah, moving them into a cooler location is what is it? Iran
It's
Contra?
against what you think. It's a Rand Contra deal. It's against what you think would be working. Counterintuitive, I believe.
Intuitive. There we go. We got to it in the end.
Yeah,
Counterintuitive,
yeah,
but it makes a lot of sense. So figure out what those are for your garden and have fun with them. Like I said, look at them as a superpower, right?
yeah,
Yeah, instead of, "Oh, I've just
absolutely.
got this,
I'm in
terrible,
trouble.
deep,
No, no, think
dark
about it.
valley."
Like when I hit the golf ball into the bunker, like, "This will be fun. How will I get it out?" It's an opportunity.
Do you really think like that?
I try to.
Oh.
I try to. Alright, away from golf, back to gardening. Again, if you are listening, we are so grateful. Please spread the word. Apparently, because we try to figure out how to grow this podcast, apparently, word of mouth is a real thing in terms of podcasts. So we'd love it if you talk to some friends.
Yeah, subscribing is fantastic. If you can leave us a review with those wonderful things that you emailed us, just put them in a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or on Substack. If you're on Substack, this should be going to your inbox. And look for us in the future. Not quite yet, but we're hoping to do some Substack lives with our little community here at some point, and that'll be fun.
Yeah.
Probably at the end when we're all exhausted and just wanna commiserate over a beer or something.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, and, don't mind your hot flashes. They can be good.
Use them for good, not evil.
See you next time.